Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome back to T Radio. Today we will be talking about psychic children with me, and of course y'all know Sarah. And if you don't know Sarah, y'all need to get on the bandwagon here, because who doesn't know Sarah? So my website is tessalunaluvia.com if you want to head on over and check that out while we're talking. And Sarah's is innervisioninstitute.com. So I'll go ahead and bring on Sarah. Hey, Sarah.
Hi, T. Hi, everyone.
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about psychic children. And Sarah actually works with psychic children, and I was a psychic child, and so was Sarah. So I think that gives us credibility. So we're going to go over some of the things on how do you know you have a psychic child, and if you do think you have a psychic child, what is it that you can do to help that child? So I kind of want to let Sarah explain to you a little bit the difference between a star child and a psychic child, because I know that I've gotten some questions. Actually, I've gotten like 12 questions before I even started the show on, didn't you guys do a show on star children? So what's the difference?
Star child is a child that is really ascended in their being. So when I think star child, I often think of children who have more consciousness, more expanded awareness outside of our human realm than most of us do, right? And a psychic child, so a star child can be a psychic child, right? But in general, a psychic child is a child who is extremely aware of the unseen world around them. And they might see things, they might hear things, they might feel things, they might know things, right? They might be connected to their past lives. They might have lived a lifetime with you where maybe they were your parent, right? And then they cycled back through as your child. And so psychic children are everywhere, and I'm actually finding that more and more and more psychic children are manifesting on this planet as the years go. They're just so connected and so aware.
So like me, being a celestial star being. So I am a star child and I am a psychic child. So I'm both. So I incarnated on this planet, but this is not like my home, and I have psychic abilities here. So when I say star children, and we did a whole show on star children, and you can find that here right on Blog Talk Radio or on my YouTube channel. When I think of star children, I think of children that incarnate on this planet and other planets. And then when I think of a psychic child, that can be a spiritual being or a star being. It can be any being that's here that's just psychic. So and it can be an earth being. So psychic children to me would be very empathic, very open to things around them. And, and I know we've talked about this before on another show, but I believe, and I think Sarah believes, that every single person that is here is born with some type of psychic ability. And what usually happens is that by the time you reach school age and you start going to school and you get under social conformity, you kind of lose that part of yourself because your human mind starts to learn things, and grow while your psychic mind kind of goes to the back. And then you're taught that most of these things aren't real, this isn't true, this doesn't exist. And so you tend to put that away. But as far as psychic children, that's everybody and anybody here. It's just some have lost it through time and then reopen themselves later in life.
Every single person is psychic, right? We all have that matrix within us, and it's just a matter of if we're tuned to the correct station or not, so to speak. And oftentimes we're much more open, much more psychic as children than we are as adults, due to social conformity and just due to starting to live our human lives and really shutting down that magic.
One of the things that I've noticed, and this is like a lot of people, and I think more people like this are coming out of the woodwork every day as adults, but most children that have a very strong psychic sense about them seem to be very empathetic. They have empathy like to the fullest. Like they're very sensitive and they're very empathic, and the need to help and the amount of how their feelings could be hurt by the smallest word, and the need to, like, just like I was saying, the humanitarianism in them is really big.
And they also tend to subconsciously take on things from, like, the people around them or their family. And so oftentimes if you have a psychic child, you might think that they might have behavioral issues or something like that, but they're actually just absorbing all of the, you know, maybe there's negativity, maybe there's fighting, maybe there's stuff going on in the family, different challenges, and that child will actually, whether they know it or not, absorb all of that energetic influence as well.
Now, you brought up behavior problems, and I just want to talk about that for a second. And we are not doctors, and we are not giving out a doctor's advice, and we're not telling you to take your kids off their meds, but I definitely want to hit on that, because I have had clients that have children that have been like on Ritalin and things like that because they cannot concentrate in school. But there's a difference between your child not being able to concentrate in school and your child coming home and telling you, hey, Mom, I can't concentrate in school because there's a ghost that keeps talking to me and I can't concentrate. So there's a big difference. So don't go take your kids off meds thinking all your kids are psychic, because that's not what we're saying. So we're definitely saying that if you have a child that has like a behavior problem, or, you know, they do have difficult concentrating in school or sitting still, definitely sitting down and say, hey, what's going on when this starts to happen? Like, what are you experiencing? If somebody would have done that to me growing up, I would have had so much stuff to say. Well, maybe not, because back then they probably would have locked you up. But I just wish that somebody would have asked me more questions growing up. You know what I mean, Sarah?
If you do have a child that's having behavioral problems, because they probably might not even be able to express what's happening to them, they might just feel like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden there's just all this antsiness inside of me, and I just want to scream, or I want to throw something, or I want to hit my head against the wall. Right? And you'll even see that a lot in autistic children. And what it is it's just an energetic buildup. Looking at all of the different facets and all of the different options of what's going on with my child is so important. And I do recommend having a conversation with someone that's aware of energy if you are feeling like, oh, well, my child's just ADD, or they're just this, or they're just that, because it could really open up a whole different world for you of understanding too.
Well, let's talk about imaginary friends, because I know when I was young, I had ghost friends, and, you know, my foster parent at the time or my adopted mother would say, okay, that's not real. You need to quit that. People think you're strange. Of course, I grew up in a different era where now it's probably more like, oh, baby, what do you see? I don't know. But because I wasn't treated that well. But imaginary friends, Sarah, let's talk about that. How many clients do you think you would say you have with kids that have imaginary friends? And what about imaginary friends? Do you think that that's something that's ghost related, or do you think that's something more psychosis related? I mean, what do you think about that?
Okay, so interestingly enough, and you might have a different experience with this, T, but I find that a lot of the psychic children that I work with, I would say probably 80% of them don't have imaginary friends. It's like they're aware of energies and ghosts and things like that, but the ghosts aren't necessarily interacting with them. The energies aren't interacting with them. Okay, so that's something that I don't see as often as I thought I would see when I first really stepped into this work. And I myself actually did not have an imaginary friend when I was a child, because I was so freaked out of all of the beings that I would see that I just would go into shutdown. I wouldn't even engage with the beings. But with that being said, where do I feel the imaginary friend element is coming from? Well, sometimes it is very real, right? And this could be a spirit guide, Okay, this could be a ghost. It could be a past loved one. My mom has told me stories of my dead grandmother coming and playing with me when I was little in my crib. And so she would hear me up all night, like laughing and playing. And when she'd come in and ask me what I was doing, I would say I'm playing with Grandma. And I didn't even know Grandma. I didn't meet Grandma. And so there can be past loved ones that come in and engage with the child. Okay, what's important and where this goes to like behavioral or psychosis or projection is the kid A, blaming things on the being, right? Or B, are they saying that the being is making them do something? And especially if it's something like dangerous or something that a kid should not be doing, that's when you really want to check in with, okay, is this spirit or is this my kid like picking things up from other places or active imagination or things like that?
It is interesting that you said that because, you know, when I was young, I didn't think they were imaginary. I thought they were real. And I only heard the word imaginary when, like, my mother would say it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, like, I thought that they could see what I could see. And I think the only kind of maybe the imaginary part that I ever did was with my stuffed animals, where I kind of would ask the spirits to go in my animals and play with them so I could touch them. I know that sounds so weird. As far as like the imaginary, I always thought they were real. And I guess the reason that I wasn't scared of them and didn't really ignore them is because growing up and going through foster homes, they're actually all I had. So I didn't like have friends or things like that. And sometimes I'd have to like sleep in the attic and stuff. And I really didn't have anybody to talk to. So I kind of thought these were my friends that would come to help me. I know that sounds weird, but that's what I took them as. So I think that's why I never lost my gift, is because even though someone told me they weren't real, I was like looking right at them going, okay, well, they look pretty real to me. And I think because another reason I didn't lose my gift as a child is because I depended on them. And, you know, and I didn't get adopted till I was like 10 or 11. So I depended on them for friendship and for help. So I think that's why I never let go of them, even though people told me they weren't real.
For those of us who are actually seeing the spirits, they are so real, it's unbelievable. It's like another person standing in front of you. And it can be pretty jarring and pretty scary if you're not used to something like that. So I think that as a parent, that's probably the worst thing that you could automatically say to your child if your child is having something like this come up where they're seeing something or experiencing something is telling them it's not real or shutting them down, right? Because that ends up turning into different coping mechanisms. And you never want to confuse your child, and you never want to have your child lose trust in you. And so, you know, if they're coming to you for help or because they're scared or because something's off and you're saying that's not real, that's opening the door for a lot of issues, right, T?
That's the one thing I think that makes me the most upset is when parents make a child feel like they're doing something wrong, like just because it's not, you know, socially acceptable or something like that. You don't want your child to feel like they're a bad person or that they're evil or that they're doing something wrong just because they're having these natural abilities come out.
You just brought up this memory in my mind where I was little and I was at like a hairstyling place with my mom, and there were these two older women there, and they saw that I was left-handed. And they immediately told me that I was a child of the devil because I was left-handed. And I kid you not, I thought my mom was going to like kill these women. She was so angry. But it just shows how different statements and different projections can really shut down a child or shut down their gifts or lead them to question, like, well, what is this? Or am I supported in this or not?
Now, the next thing that I stay so interested in, I even find myself watching YouTube videos on this constantly, But what about children that can remember their past life? I was watching a YouTube video the other day about this kid who remembered he was like a pilot in the war, and he knew where he got shot down. He knew his name. And I was like, what? And then they even went to go visit the place where he said he lived, and it was exactly like he had described it. And I mean, and it was like in Ireland. I mean, it was like nowhere. Like, she was in the USA and he was like 10. He's never even been there, you know. So it was crazy to me that he was, you know, able to describe that. Me, if I want to see my past life, girl, I got to go into meditation. I got to go into trance. I got to grab some crystals. You feel me here? So what do you think about the children who can remember their past life, and why do you think they hold on to that memory when supposedly those are things that we can't remember when we come back?
Well, those children are so gifted, right? And what you'll find is that the veil, and the veil, what I'm talking about is like the curtain between our world, ourselves, our consciousness, and the greater world self-consciousness that's out there. The veil is so thin with these children, and so it's like they have access to all of this information, all of this ascended information that most of us don't. So I fully believe that kids can you know, remember their past lives. They can bring forward those past life memories, and some of them are still sometimes living in the trauma of that past life, or they've kind of brought that trauma or that feeling with them, right? I have a nephew who is absolutely terrified of water and sharks in the water, and it started happening when he was like 2 years old, before he even had concept or awareness of sharks and water. And so I did some past life work with him, and oh yeah, guess what? He drowned. Right? And so that's where that inherent fear is with him. And I mean, he would be terrified. He would scream and run. We couldn't even get him to go to the beach or anything. I've worked with another woman who, she kept finding her kid playing with broken glass. And this is like a 4-year-old. And she's like, you cannot touch the glass. Stop touching the glass. Well, the kid goes, Mommy, this is what I used to do all the time. It's okay. I know how to do this. The kid used to be a stained glass maker in his past life. He was totally bringing forward that imprint and that awareness of, guess what? I work with broken glass and stained glass, and I put it together and I make pretty things. Now, he's coming from that ascended point of, I'm an old man and I'm doing this, right? But he's in a 4-year-old's body. So, of course, the parents and the responsible parties around him are having some concerns because they don't want him to cut himself. So there's kind of this balance that you need to find with these children of how do we let them express and continue to work through that lifetime and that information, because obviously it's still there for a reason, but how do we also keep them safe?
It's interesting you brought up like the knowledge from past lives and things like that, because I was just talking about the other day how we can access universal knowledge, and a lot of people would say, oh, you're accessing the Akashic records, but no, I don't think so. There's a lot of times where I can just know something or access something, and it's like it's not coming from the records, it's coming from like the universe. And sometimes I think it was from a past life, because like I know I always tell the story about how I took the bar the first time, never studied, never did anything, and passed. And I don't know how I did it, because I literally did not study. I didn't do anything. I rarely even opened my book. So I just did like the minimum requirements I had to do. I'm serious, people. I'm so lazy. But I passed it the first time. And I know people that have took it 7, 8, 9 times and couldn't pass it. So it's so weird, though. It's like I go into like this place where the information just comes to me. Like the answers are just there. I just know it for some reason. So I've always wondered, was I a lawyer in a past life, or was I something in a past life? And is that what I'm remembering? But I have a question for you. Because I have a friend who is studying the whole DNA thing, and they do not believe in reincarnation to where we do, but they do not believe in reincarnation, and they believe that all these memories and things come from the DNA from, like, your ancestors, like your grandma was a great baker, and that DNA is in you, and that's why you can bake good, even though no one's ever taught you, and you know, your dad was a poet, and that's why you, I mean, what do you feel about that, Sarah? What do you think about that?
That is epigenetics, right? When we look at the genome and the wisdom in it and the ancestry and all of that. And science has actually been able to prove through epigenetic studies that our DNA does hold the experiences, the trauma from our ancestors. So, of course, it would be easy to say yes, and it also holds the wisdom. Science hasn't really gotten into past lives yet. And I studied science in school. I would call myself like a person of science, right? But I think that for people that are in the science field, seeing is believing, right? Seeing is understanding. And there's this whole entire world of spirit that is still, it's not tangible. It's not something you can, like, put your hands on. It's not something you can see through a microscope. So I think just in general, we're behind on that, right? But with that being said, both are absolutely fitting and absolutely true. Yes, we do carry the ancestral intelligence through our DNA and through our lineage of both sides of our family, right? And yes, we also incarnate over and over and over again, and sometimes it's into the same family unit, right? And sometimes it's a completely different family or a completely different soul family.
For the next one, I think that a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's not psychic tea. But for the next one, it's like a strong love for animals and a strong concern for the planet. But a lot of people go, well, God, that's everybody. But no, it's not. Like where I live in this nice little greedy Bible Belt with all these greedy people, there's not much concern for like the planet here. I mean, I watch the recycle people put the recycle stuff in the trash truck, and I don't even know why we have 2 trash cans. So literally where I live, they don't care. So to have this strong love for like the environment and for the planet is actually kind of a rare thing. And because you hear about it so much is because people stand up and they're starting to say something. But if you take that number of people that are standing up next to the number of people that really don't care, you will find that these are some brave people standing up because it's such a low number. I would say that like the West, like California where you live, Sarah, cares 10 times more than the Midwest where I live. And I don't know why that is, because we get sun too. We could be using them solar panels and them wind farms, but they don't do it. They just don't do it. As a matter of fact, where I live, it's illegal to put solar panels on your house in the city. You have to be out of the county and in the country in order to put solar panels on your house because it's illegal here. So, yeah, wow. It's weird, right? You'd think they would want you to save energy, and we have one electric company that charges so much money, it's insane. Like, everybody knows I live in a Victorian house. My last electric bill, now this is just electric, not gas, my last electric bill for the month was over $2,000, and that's 1 month. So, yeah, so you would think that they would allow you to help with that cost, but they don't. So having a strong concern for the environment and being a child is more of a psychic thing, because really it's not anything that you would think about. Like where I am, if I didn't learn about recycling like from somewhere, I wouldn't know about it. So to have a strong connection to the planet, want to keep it safe and worried about it is actually, to me, a psychic gift. And then the love for animals. I live in the Midwest. They hunt animals. They hunt them. I've seen deer like by their hooves, and they eat deer, they eat rabbit, they eat squirrel. They eat raccoon. They ain't worried about no animals. So to grow up and have a strong love and a fear that animals are being hurt when you would think that you would be taught animals are to be hunted would also, to me, be a psychic trait.
If we look at that connection to the earth, if we look at that connection to the animals, to the animal kingdom, that is an expanded connection. That is an ascended connection. If you have a 3-year-old that's saying, no, but mommy, we have to save the animals, we have to save the rhinos, we have to save the elephants, whatever it is, that is a really special kid. And they have a deeper understanding, right? They have a deeper awareness for the balance of our world. And guess what? Anytime things are out of balance, stuff's going to happen to bring it back into balance, okay? And sometimes that stuff is not good. Sometimes that stuff is good, right? Sometimes it's earthly events. Sometimes it's just, oh, there's a new species, or we discovered this, extinct animal has come back, right? So ultimately, I do agree that it is more of an intuitive, an empathic, a deeply connected trait that not all children have, that not all people have. And it's a beautiful trait. And I also think that it's a trait that can be taught, right? It's not something that just you have it or you don't, just like our psychic ability. When you really tap into the earth, when you really tap into the animal kingdom, it's very profound. And they have a lot of information for us. They have a lot of knowing. And so I really honor and love the children that are manifesting on this earth lately that just have so much passion and so much integrity for how we're holding this space that we live in and these beings that we live side by side with.
So the next one I want to talk about is trouble sleeping or waking through the night. And I did this all the time as a child. I couldn't get to sleep until like 1 o'clock in the morning. And then by 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I was up. And I actually sleep, even to this day, with a TV on. If I don't have a TV on, all I hear is chatter. And if the TV goes off during the night, like if for some reason it just shuts off or something happens, I'll wake immediately up. I'll know that TV went off. I'll know that the chatter will start, and I don't care how deep asleep I am, I will wake straight up. So it kind of goes back to the whole, mommy, is there a monster in the closet, or check under my bed for a monster? So I guess there's all different reasons, but for me, it was chatter. I could hear people talking, whether I could see them or not. So I sleep with the TV on then and now because I can't hear that. I can't sleep if I'm hearing things. And so, yeah, I never really had the mommy, there's a monster in the closet, but I always did feel like that there was something always watching me 24/7. And even to this day, taking showers, walking around anywhere and sleeping, I always feel like there's eyeballs on me.
I have very vivid memory of being 7, 8, 9 years old and being in my room and just knowing that I was being watched constantly. And it's a very strange feeling. But okay, so nighttime stuff, not being able to sleep, not waking up early, all of that. There's 2 things that could be happening, right? And the first thing is that there is some kind of unseen influence that is affecting your child. Okay? I could see beings walking around my room all night, every night. I would hear their footsteps on the carpet. I kid you not. Squish, 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 just their footsteps walking around the room. So I love that you sleep with a TV on because you're, in your 40s, right, T? I sleep with I sleep with a T-shirt, and I squish it on one ear, and then I span it across my eyes, and I squish it into the other ear. And so I call it my eye blankie. But I've been sleeping with that ever since I was young, because guess what? It takes care of the ears and the eyes. I can't hear or see the beings that are in my room. So some beings will be more mischievous, right? Where they'll do poking, they'll knock stuff over. You know, you might feel like the blankets flutter. That's more of like a poltergeist type experience. Some beings will just stand and talk. Some will just be there, and it's scary. And so that is all stuff that, you know, if children are getting scared at night, please, please, please really look in on them, really check in on them, because oftentimes it's not overactive imagination. And you'll be able to tell when it is imagination and when it's not, because what I see is that kids will start talking about things that they have no understanding of, right? No connection to. It's like this kid has never seen a bloody hatchet and gooey blood ever in their life, and now they're talking about someone showing up with, you know, a bloody hatchet in their head or something like that. So always double check with your kid and teach them energy awareness, which is something that I do with children, right? And then the other thing that this could be is that, you know, your kid is just a really bad sleeper, and they're awake a lot, or maybe they're taking too many naps, or they're sleeping too late, and so their sleep schedule's off, and then they're all over the place. But oftentimes those are the kids that will come into the room and they're the mommy, I'm thirsty, mommy, I'm hungry, right? The ones that are up playing in their room at night. So that's kind of the other difference is the kid so terrified that it's not getting out of bed, or that it's like running and jumping into your bed and hiding under the covers? Or is the kid just kind of like, yeah, I couldn't sleep, I'm thirsty?
You know that I have 100 things going at once at any given time. So my creativity is so crazy that it keeps me up at night, because I can wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go, oh my God, I could redesign my whole website. And by morning, I'll have the whole thing figured out in my head of what I want to do. So my mind is always going 100 miles an hour, and I could do anything you ask me to do. And if I don't know how to do it, give me 5 minutes, I'll figure it out. So strong creativity in a child tells me that there's some strong intuition, some strong third eye stuff going on, some strong crown chakra stuff going on there, and that they're just constantly being fed new ideas and new information, and then they try to figure out through creativity how to take that and make it work. So I know that that's like a lot that you think, oh, well, gosh, my child's 3, they're not doing all that. But even as far as I can remember in life, my mind has always been doing this, and I was always thinking, when I grow up, I'm going to build a skyscraper, and it's going to have balloons. I mean, I would do the craziest stuff growing up in my mind, and I had all these plans for when I turned 18. I was going to have a zoo. I knew how it was going to be painted. I knew what animals I was going to have. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, there's definitely that difference, right, between is your child in their normal range for their age as far as what they're bringing forward, what they're imagining, or are they tapping into a higher intelligence, right? And we'll see that higher intelligence in things like music. Maybe the kid's 4 years old and it's like the next Beethoven. It's got amazing music abilities. We also see this in art. You know, the kids never picked up a sketching pencil in their life, and all of a sudden they're sketching the most realistic real-life garden scenes you've ever seen in your life. We also see this higher intelligence, these what I call the higher downloads coming through with language. Kids heard Spanish 6 times, now he speaks Spanish, right? Or had a Russian nanny for a month, fluent in Russian, okay? So I call this all the higher crown chakra and third eye chakra, those higher intelligence, those higher downloads coming in. Now we all get these downloads, right? Those are those bright ideas that, oh, I'm going to do this, or, oh, I think I should do that. Those are those pokes. But how ascended are those pokes? Oftentimes, as adults, we'll actually speak them away from us, like, oh, no, that can't be possible, or I won't do that. But children are much more pliable. They're just like, oh, cool, great idea. Yeah, let's do it. Let's save the world. Let's get water for all. Let's learn 10 new languages. The interesting part is that when you have a highly creative child, they're actually working through all of their chakras. There is no limitation. And I'll explain this because when you get that bright idea, when you're manifesting, that bright idea will come in through the top of your head. It'll come in through the crown chakra. And then what do we do next? We kind of start to visualize it, right? So maybe that idea is for T, I want to build a skyscraper. What did you want on the skyscraper, T?
I wanted balloons at the top because if I ever wanted to move my skyscraper, I could relocate it.
All right. So T, when she was a child, she had this great download into the crown chakra of, I'm going to create this movable skyscraper, right? It can fly. And so she got the download, and then she started visualizing it. So she started thinking about what it would look like, and that's dropping it into the third eye. And then maybe you started talking about it, right? And that's where we go to the throat chakra. You start talking about your manifestation. Now, for any of you listening, I'd like you to think about those bright ideas that you've gotten. You've probably thought about them, and maybe you've started talking about them. If you haven't started talking about them yet, then that's where the block is. That's where the disconnect is between the third eye and the throat, okay? And then we drop it down to the heart. Now, that heart is, now I'm really adding love to this. I'm really diving into it. I'm giving this a lot of energy. And then you go to your plexus where you're giving it that life force. Yes, I'm totally in this. I'm committed to this. I want to bring this forward. Okay, and then you go down to your sacral chakra, which guess what, is your creativity center. So that's probably where you're going to start, like really drawing it out, really putting together all of those fine details of whatever you're creating, right? Whether it's a business, whether it's a flying skyscraper, whether it's a artistic project. And finally, when you drop it to the root, that's when you bring it forward into the physical. That's when you actually build it. You actually do it. You actually take action on it. So you'll find that children that are very, very open, they're very intuitive, they're very empathic, they're connected to that higher consciousness, that worldliness, that universal, everything, oneness. They have zero limitations through their chakras. And so if they think of something, they drop it down. They've already visualized it. They've started talking about it. They've taken it through the heart, through the plexus, through the sacral chakra, and they're like, let's do this right now, So that's what I love about psychic children and creative children is that they really just, there's zero limitations. They see something, they do it, right? And us as adults, we tend to limit ourselves so much. And so I encourage all of you to look at not only your creative process, but if you have children, your child's creative process, and look at where am I getting stopped at, or where is my child getting stopped at? Like, are they not talking about it? Is it a throat chakra block? Are they excited about the bright idea, but then they don't actually want to do it? Is it a root chakra block? So really that's how I see creation. That's how I see manifestation in children and tapping into that higher intelligence, that higher way of being.
When I was older, like 13 or 14, and I always thought that everything I would say would come true. I don't know. And because most of it I felt did, and it was probably just more of a psychic thing. But when I was about 13 or 14, I saw this movie. I cannot remember the name of it right now, but it was where these big, tall buildings would float off the ground, and it was like in Japan or something. And they showed like the buildings would like float off the ground, and people would have to take a strange elevator to get up to like the building, like there was an elevator, like you would go from the ground and go up into it. And I can't remember, some alien movie or something, but I remember thinking, oh my God, I dreamt that. I was going to make that. That's the building. I bet I manifested that into somebody's mind to make that movie. I mean, it was so crazy when I was like a teenager, because I was thinking that all these things that were in my mind and everything, that I was creating somebody else to make it, because I would have like this weird thought of something that would be cool, and then I'd see a movie about it and go, wait a minute, somebody's taking my ideas or something. But it was crazy because I stayed so imaginative, creative, that I felt like I was almost manifesting it. So it was weird that you would say that, like put it in your throat chakra and stuff, because I felt like even to this day, and you know me, so you know this is true, even to this day, I feel like if I talk about one of my dreams or ideas, if somebody else is going to make it happen. And if I had not said anything, it would have been mine. So even to this day, I have that fear that I'm going to say something that I've imagined or created, and then it's going to happen because somebody else is going to create it just because I spoke it. Now, isn't that strange? As a psychic child, I never really had much control over my thoughts. It was like somebody else was feeding me thoughts, and then I had to figure out what I was going to do with that information. So, yeah, it's strange. Yeah. If I could create, and I talk about this now, you can create your reality, but you can't do it with a single thought. Like Sarah said, you have to take that thought and you have to put it into action. And I think that until I figured that out, my life stayed at this stagnant crossroad. Well, you know, Sarah, you've been with me for this wild ride, but, but my life stayed at a very stagnant crossroad, and it's like I just sat down in the middle of the road and I didn't do anything. But it was when I started voicing what I wanted to do next and then putting that into action is when my life actually started taking a turn. So now I try to tell as many people as I can, hey, don't talk about it, be about it, you know? Put it out there, put it out there. But but before I didn't, I kept it all inside and I kind of stayed stagnant. So you really do have to put that out there and put it into action. So yeah. Sarah, do you have any advice for parents that are going, okay, well, my child sounds like most of what you said, so what do I do now?
You want to empower your child and teach them how to manage this gift, right? Teach them energy management. And I would say that first and foremost, that's the most important, because if you have a child that's hearing things, seeing things, feeling things, getting impacted by others, they're going to have a tough time. So why not just start by, let's teach you how to control this. And the best way to do that is to work in superpowers, to work in energy. All kids kind of know superpowers. They know that, you can move things with your mind, or, there's a force field around me, right? And so you can just start with that. Like, how strong is your force field today? Are you letting, other people's stuff into your force field? I also work with children in energetic terms with the idea of butterflies fluttering on their skin, right? So if they're being impacted by negativity, whether it's at school or in home or from, someone that they have to be around that's maybe just mean, you can also teach them to bring in those happy butterflies, to bring in the healing butterflies, and to feel the butterflies really fluttering up and down all the skin and making them happy and taking away the yucky feelings. So, really empower them. If there's scary stuff in the room at night, make them an energy clearing spray, right? Put some lavender, some frankincense, some rose oil, some sea salt in a little spray bottle, and dilute it with water, and then teach them to spray the places that feel gross, right? Spray the places where the spirits appear. That way they can really start to have self-management and learn to take care of their own problems, right? That's something that I so wish my parents would have done with me when I was little, because they just didn't know what to do. So it was like, well, let's just not talk about it, and Sarah's never going to sleep. So acknowledge and help them. Reach out to someone.
Breathe.